The docking station of Typhon 9 was always alive with noise. Engines hummed, metal screeched, and the chatter of alien voices filled the air. Ships of every shape and size drifted through the bay, unloading cargo or preparing for interstellar jumps. Yet in the corner of the station, hidden behind a stack of container freighters, lay a vessel no one noticed. It was massive, battered, and covered in rust. Some said it had been abandoned for decades. Others whispered that it was cursed. Humans were a rare sight at Typhon 9, and among them, Elias Trent was even rarer. A human mechanic with no formal rank or fleet, he survived on ingenuity and stubborn persistence. While aliens often relied on their precise calculations and strict protocols, Elias thrived on intuition, improvisation, and a certain reckless confidence. He had a reputation. If it could be fixed, he would fix it, no matter what anyone said. When Elias first saw the ship, he nearly laughed. The hull was scarred by old battles, the paint chipped and peeling, and many panels hung loose as if a strong wind could blow them away. Most other engineers would have walked past it, muttering about useless junk. But Elias stopped, his hand brushing the ship's cold metal. He felt it, not just the structure but a strange pulse beneath, faint but undeniable. "This is something," he muttered, eyes shining. Other dockworkers glanced at him and shook their heads. "That's just a broken relic, human. Leave it alone," a large alien with 4 arms said. Its voice rumbled like distant thunder. "No one cares about this thing." Elias smiled. "Maybe no one cares, but I do." He spent the first day walking around the vessel, taking notes, examining panels, and scanning the hull. Alien technology often left humans frustrated, but this ship was different. It was a hybrid, some parts clearly human, others alien, all integrated in a way that suggested someone had tried to create something exceptional long ago. Yet something had gone wrong, and now the ship was forgotten. Night came, and the docking station grew quieter. Most ships had left, and the aliens' chatter faded. Elias stayed behind, tools in hand, lighting a small lamp near the ship's entrance. He crawled inside, the air thick with dust and the scent of burnt circuits. Panels were loose, wires dangling, and the floors were covered with debris, but even in this chaos he saw the potential. "This could fly again," he whispered to himself. "Better than anyone thinks." Elias worked carefully, starting with small systems. He cleaned and repaired the power conduits, patched leaks in the fuel lines, and replaced broken interface panels with salvaged parts. His hands moved with practiced precision, guided not only by experience, but by a strange connection he felt with the ship. It was almost as if the vessel understood him. By the second day, the engine core hummed faintly. It was weak, but alive. Elias felt a thrill. Few humans would have dared approach such a project, and fewer still would have understood the engineering challenges. But he thrived in the impossible. As word spread about the human working on the forgotten ship, aliens started to watch. Some snickered behind their hands, thinking it was a futile effort. Others were curious, seeing the faint sparks and pulses from the engine. But no one stepped in. There was a respect, or maybe fear, in watching a human work. Elias didn't notice them. He was absorbed in the task. He traced circuits, rewrote old programming, and improvised replacements where nothing fit. His human creativity thrived in chaos, unlike the aliens who relied on rigid plans and manuals. One evening, a small group of alien engineers approached him cautiously. "Why bother, human?" asked one, a tall creature with translucent skin. "It is broken. There is no value here." Elias wiped his hands on his jumpsuit. Value isn't always obvious. Sometimes it's hidden. Sometimes you just need to give it a chance. They stared at him, unsure how to respond. Humans often worked in ways they didn't understand, guided by instinct more than logic. Elias didn't wait for approval. He climbed to the engine room, opening the massive access panel to the main drive. Inside, he found the remnants of a design that no current alien fleet could replicate. It was complex, chaotic, yet elegant. "This is brilliant," Elias said aloud, almost to himself. "They just gave up on it too soon." Hours passed. Sparks flew and circuits hummed with life as Elias connected wires, rewired power nodes, and slowly restored the ship's internal systems. He had to improvise constantly, using human ingenuity to make mismatched parts work together. No manual could guide him. No alien logic could solve the riddles embedded in the design. Only persistence, creativity, and stubbornness could. By the third day, the ship's lights flickered on. Panels glowed softly, consoles powered up, and a low, steady hum filled the hull. Elias stepped back, exhausted but triumphant. It wasn't flying yet, but it was awake. The ship seemed to breathe, as if it had been waiting for someone like him. For the first time he heard it, a soft, almost imperceptible vibration in the floor. The engine core pulsed gently. Elias knelt down, placing his hand on the metal. "I see you," he said. "And I'm not leaving." That night, as the docking station quieted, other engineers left, leaving Elias alone with the ship. He lit a small lamp and stared at the controls. Panels displayed strange symbols, old programming languages, and partially corrupted data streams. Yet he didn't feel defeated. He felt challenged, and that challenge thrilled him. A sound from the sensors caught his attention, a faint energy pulse like a heartbeat. The ship wasn't just a vessel, it was a machine with memory, perhaps even awareness. Elia's mind raced with possibilities. If he could unlock its full potential, it could be more than a ship. It could be a masterpiece. By the fourth day, he had managed to activate the secondary systems. Life support hummed quietly, gravity stabilized, and the navigation arrays responded to commands. The ship was no longer completely abandoned. It was awakening under the care of a human mechanic who refused to see limits. Outside, alien observers whispered among themselves. The human was relentless, unpredictable, and remarkably skilled. Some were annoyed, others curious. None dared intervene. Humans were a strange species, tenacious, daring, and full of ideas no one else could imagine. Elia's work was proof. As he climbed to the observation deck, looking out at the stars beyond the docking station, he allowed himself a small smile. The ship was still battered, still incomplete, but it had a spark. And that spark was enough. "This isn't just repair," Elias said softly. "This is creation, and I'm just getting started." The stars outside the viewport twinkled, distant and indifferent. But within the hull of the forgotten vessel, a new story was beginning. A story of human ingenuity, stubbornness, and the belief that no challenge was too great. The galaxy may have ignored this ship, but humans never ignored a challenge. And with that, Elias began his work anew, unaware that his actions were already stirring whispers across the station. Stories of the human who refused to let a ship die were spreading, slowly, quietly, but with a momentum that could not be stopped. The abandoned ship, long ignored, was beginning to shine again. And the human who saw its potential was only just beginning his journey. By the time the second week arrived, the abandoned ship no longer seemed like a derelict hulk. Its hull, though scratched and scarred, glimmered faintly under the docking bay lights. Consoles blinked with soft pulses, engines hummed with renewed life, and a faint, steady vibration ran through the deck. Elias Trent had not only restored the ship's basic systems, he had begun awakening it. The aliens who had watched him at first with amusement now watched with curiosity. Small groups would linger in the shadows, whispering among themselves. "The human, he does things differently," one muttered, its voice trembling with both admiration and confusion. Unlike their disciplined, calculated methods, Elias worked with intuition. He improvised constantly, connecting mismatched systems, bending rules, and creating solutions no manual could provide. Elias worked from dawn to night, rarely resting. He climbed into the engine room, tools in hand, and studied the main drive. It was unlike anything he had seen before. a hybrid of alien engineering and human adaptability, a machine designed to be extraordinary, but abandoned before anyone could realize its full potential. "This is amazing," he whispered as he traced the patterns of energy flow. "They almost made something incredible and then gave up." He smiled. That was where humans excelled. Humans did not give up. Humans saw opportunity where others saw failure. And Elias was about to prove it. He started with the ship's power distribution system. The conduits were corroded, the connectors misaligned, and the old energy cells leaking. Using parts scavenged from the scrapyard and some custom-built components, he rebuilt the system. Not just to work, but to work efficiently. The energy pulses that had once sputtered now flowed in smooth, controlled waves, stronger than ever. Next came the weapon systems. Many alien engineers had studied these systems and declared them unrepairable. But Elias was not most engineers. He understood not only how the weapons were built, but how they could adapt. By tweaking the targeting arrays and linking them to the ship's adaptive sensors, he created a system that could learn patterns of movement and adjust itself in real time. "They'll never expect this," Elias muttered, watching as the interface ran diagnostics. Even partially repaired, the systems were showing promise. Targets simulated in the training programs were being predicted with uncanny accuracy. Life support was next. The ventilation grids were clogged, oxygen filters ruined, and gravity generators unstable. Using a combination of salvaged alien tech and human ingenuity, he repaired them. By the third day, the ship could sustain a crew without any external support. It was a quiet victory, but one that meant Elias could finally spend more time on what truly mattered, the ship itself. As he worked, he began to notice strange reactions from the vessel. Panels flickered when he approached, and soft vibrations traveled along the hull as if the ship responded to his presence. At first he thought it was imagination, a human tendency to see patterns where none existed. But the more he interacted with the ship, the more it seemed aware. One night, after finishing a complex rewiring of the secondary engine, he climbed to the observation deck. He looked at the stars, stretching endlessly beyond the docking station. The lights of distant ships shimmered like tiny diamonds, but his attention was on the ship beneath his hands. It had grown under his care, systems harmonized, engines stable, weapons ready. And yet he knew it had more potential. "I know you want to fly," he said softly, almost as if speaking to a person, "and I will make sure you do." Meanwhile, alien observers continued to watch. Some were skeptical, believing the human would eventually fail. Others whispered in awe, pointing at the strange energy spikes coming from the ship's hull. Engineers and scientists who had spent decades in their craft could not understand how Elias achieved what he did. On the sixth day, he faced his biggest challenge yet, the navigation system. The old star charts were corrupted, the jump engines partially destroyed, and the interface almost unreadable to anyone unfamiliar with human thinking. While aliens relied on precise calculations and rigid protocols, Elias approached it differently. He didn't just repair the system, he redesigned it. By connecting it to the ship's adaptive core, he created a navigation system capable of learning the fastest routes, avoiding hazards, and even predicting gravitational anomalies. When he first tested it, the system responded instantly. Coordinates recalculated in milliseconds, simulations displayed with perfect accuracy, and the jump engines hummed with anticipation. Elias grinned. This was more than repair, this was evolution. Word of his progress began to spread beyond the docking station. Traders, pilots, and even some small fleets took notice of the ship's unusual activity. Rumors circulated. "A human is working on the forgotten ship," they said. "It moves, almost like it's alive." Elias was aware of the whispers, but he paid them no mind. For him, it was never about recognition. It was about the challenge. Humans thrived in adversity, and the bigger the challenge, the greater the reward. By the end of the second week, the ship was ready for its first test. Elias prepared the main engine, double-checked all systems, and ran diagnostics. The pulse of the engine core was steady and strong. The shields held, the weapons were online, and life support systems were fully operational. He took a deep breath, hands on the controls. "Let's see what you can really do," he said. The ship rumbled under him as it rose from the docking bay. The aliens who had lingered outside watched in awe as the once-abandoned vessel lifted smoothly, engines humming with unexpected power. The stars outside stretched into streaks of light as the ship moved through the bay, its systems perfectly synchronized. "Impressive," whispered one of the alien engineers. "I didn't think it could move like that." Elias didn't answer. He was too focused, adjusting power flow, testing maneuverability, and feeling the ship respond to his commands. Every movement was precise, yet fluid. Unlike the rigid ships of the aliens, this vessel moved as if it were an extension of his own mind. He pushed further, testing the weapons in simulation. The targeting arrays adjusted instantly, predicting trajectories and calculating firing solutions with remarkable efficiency. Even the alien observers had to admit, this was no ordinary ship. By the evening, he had returned the ship to the docking station. Though it looked the same from the outside, its transformation was evident to anyone who dared to look closely. Panels gleamed faintly, systems hummed in harmony, and the faint pulse of energy suggested that this vessel was no longer abandoned. Elias climbed to the observation deck, exhausted but exhilarated. He looked at the stars again, thinking of the journeys ahead. The ship had potential he was only beginning to understand. There were features buried deep within its design, systems even alien engineers had given up on, and Elias knew he could unlock them. The next morning, he resumed work. He spent hours analyzing the core systems, studying alien schematics, and improvising new enhancements. He installed adaptive shields, improved energy efficiency, and even began testing stealth mechanisms. Each new modification brought fresh surprises, features the original designers might never have imagined. The alien engineers continued to watch, a mix of awe and envy growing among them. Many tried to replicate his methods, but human intuition was unlike any algorithm or formula they had ever known. Elias solved problems in ways no alien could, combining creativity, adaptability, and risk-taking. By the end of the week, the ship was more than a repair. It was a masterpiece. Every system functioned beyond its original design. Shields were adaptive, weapons predictive, engines efficient beyond expectation. The ship no longer seemed abandoned. It had a presence, a confidence, almost a personality of its own. And Elias knew it was only the beginning. He looked out at the stars one last time before resting, whispering, "We're going to show them, old friend. They'll never ignore us again." Somewhere in the docking station, alien observers exchanged nervous glances. The human had done what they considered impossible. And if he continued, they realized this ship, and its mechanic, could change everything they thought they knew about humans. The abandoned vessel, once ignored by all, was awakening. And the human who had brought it back to life was proving something that no alien fleet could deny. Ingenuity, creativity, and sheer determination could make humans, and their machines, unmatched in the galaxy. The galaxy had a long memory, and news traveled faster than light when something unusual occurred. Word of the human mechanic and his revived ship spread quietly at first, whispered among pilots and traders in docking stations across multiple star systems. Then, slowly, the murmurs grew into astonished chatter. Humans had a reputation for stubbornness and daring, but this human, Elias Trent, had done something no one expected. He had awakened a forgotten ship, restoring it not just to functionality, but to greatness. Elias continued his work with the same quiet determination. He wasn't concerned with fame, admiration, or envy. His focus was on the ship, But the galaxy could not ignore it. It began with small encounters. During routine cargo runs near Typhon 9, the ship's efficiency and speed turned heads. Other pilots would see the vessel glide past, maneuvering with uncanny precision, its energy signature stable yet powerful. Some tried to hail Elias, curious to know how a single human could operate such an advanced machine with ease. He only smiled and waved. "What's he doing differently?" one alien engineer asked another, watching the vessel disappear into hyperspace. "It's as if the ship has a mind of its own." Elias knew the truth. The ship did not have a mind like a living creature, but it responded to him. Humans often had a strange relationship with machines. They could coax potential from them that no one else could. It was part instinct, part creativity, and part stubbornness that refused to accept limits. One afternoon, an alien freighter attempted to cut across his path. Elias adjusted the ship's trajectory with a subtle flick of his hand. The freighter's sensors briefly locked on to the vessel, expecting a collision. But the ship responded before the freighter even had time to react, sliding past with precision that was impossible by conventional calculations. The aliens aboard the freighter were stunned. "Impossible," one whispered. "No one can pilot like that." That night back at Typhon 9, Elias returned to the ship's systems. He spent hours upgrading shields and propulsion systems, analyzing energy output and improving weapon targeting algorithms. His modifications were small, almost invisible but cumulative. Each change made the ship faster, smarter, more resilient. And then came the first serious test, an attempted attack by space pirates. They were a notorious gang, preying on traders and small freighters near the outer rim. They saw the ship as an easy target. After all, it was rumored to be an abandoned relic. But as the pirates approached, the ship reacted instantly. Shields activated before they could even fire. The engines performed maneuvers no pirate vessel had ever seen, and the adaptive weapon systems countered their attacks with perfect timing. Within minutes, the pirate vessel was disabled, its engines fried without a single shot fired directly at it. Elias watched calmly, sipping a cup of warm coffee as the pirates floated helplessly in space. "Never underestimate the human touch," he said quietly, almost to the ship itself. The pirates transmitted a plea for surrender to the station, warning other fleets to beware the human and his ship. That broadcast spread like wildfire. Aliens who had once dismissed the vessel now looked at it with fear and respect. Humans were clever, yes, but Elias had proven they could take ingenuity to a level the galaxy had never seen. It was around this time that other engineers began to attempt replication. Aliens scoured scrapyards and old blueprints, trying desperately to mimic what Elias had done. But human intuition could not be copied. Where the aliens tried to follow strict protocols and rules, Elias relied on creativity and improvisation. He adapted systems in ways that made no sense to others yet worked perfectly. "Why can't they do it?" one alien muttered, frustration cracking their voice. "We have centuries of engineering knowledge, we follow every manual, but still, a human does what we cannot." Elias overheard nothing of these conversations, yet he knew the effect his work had. The galaxy was watching. Traders, engineers, and fleet commanders began to discuss the implications. If a single human could achieve this with one ship, what could humanity do with an entire fleet? Soon, rival factions began to emerge. Some were curious, wishing to ally with Elias or purchase his ship. Others were hostile, seeing him as a threat to galactic power balances. A small scouting fleet arrived at Typhon 9, their intentions unclear. They observed from a distance, scanning the ship, sending encrypted messages back to their leaders. Elias sensed their presence. Humans were often aware of threats long before others noticed them, not because of superior sensors, but because humans paid attention to details others ignored. He adjusted the ship's shields, tuned energy emissions, and prepared a few surprises. The first approach of these rivals was cautious. They sent a message through the docking station, demanding to know the humans' intentions. Elias smiled as he read it. "I don't intend to fight," he responded, "but I will defend what I've built." The aliens were puzzled. They could not understand humans. Their thinking was linear, predictable. Elia's thinking was neither. It was adaptive, fluid, and unpredictable. That unpredictability was as dangerous as any weapon. One evening, Elias took the ship out for a long test run beyond the docking station, traveling through asteroid fields, navigating radiation belts, and testing its adaptive shields. Every system performed flawlessly. The ship moved as if it were alive, responding to his thoughts and commands with perfect timing. It was faster, smarter, and more capable than any alien vessel in its sector. When he returned, the observers were silent. The display of skill and control was undeniable. Even the most skeptical alien engineers could not hide their awe. "Humans," one whispered to another, "they think differently. They don't follow rules, they make rules." Elias didn't care about their admiration. His focus was on improvement. He began experimenting with stealth capabilities, energy efficiency, and new propulsion methods. Every day brought new challenges, and every challenge brought new solutions. The ship was evolving, not just mechanically, but as a reflection of human creativity and ingenuity. As weeks passed, the ship gained a reputation. Traders and small fleets requested brief demonstrations. Fleet commanders sent envoys to negotiate alliances, and rumors spread across multiple systems. Some feared the ship, believing it to be too advanced, too unpredictable. Others wanted it as a template for future designs. Elias remained focused. Recognition and rivalry meant nothing if he could not continue to push the ship's capabilities. But the galaxy was no longer ignorant. Humans were clever, and one human had proven just how much. Then came a real challenge. An alien fleet arrived at Typhon 9, not as envoys but as observers with power. They were curious and cautious, but also prepared to act if necessary. Elias sensed their approach through subtle energy fluctuations and minor disturbances in docking protocols. Humans had an awareness that came from attention to detail, intuition, and experience. The fleet hovered in space, waiting for a response. Aliens sent a delegation questioning Elias about the ship, its purpose, and its capabilities. He replied honestly, "It's a ship I restored. I built it to fly. I built it to be efficient. Beyond that, we'll see." Their confusion was palpable. They expected arrogance, submission, or calculation. They got neither. Humans were unpredictable, and this human more so than most. That night, as Elias worked alone on further upgrades, the ship pulsed faintly. It had been silent for centuries, abandoned and ignored. Now it was alive in a way that no alien engineering manual could explain. The vessel was no longer just a ship. It was a symbol of human ingenuity, resilience, and creativity. And Elias knew that the next phase of this story was about to begin. Rivalries would emerge, challenges would come, and perhaps even battles. But humans were not meant to be ignored. Humans did not yield to obstacles. And this ship, once abandoned and forgotten, was about to prove that humans could achieve greatness where others had failed. The galaxy was watching, and the human mechanic, with a mind full of ideas and a ship full of potential, was ready to show what humans were truly capable of. The galaxy was no longer ignoring the human mechanic or his ship. Across multiple star systems, whispers of Elias Trent and the once abandoned vessel spread like wildfire. Traders told stories of a ship that moved as if alive, with weapons that predicted enemy actions, engines that outpaced even the fastest fleets, and shields that adapted to attacks instantly. But admiration was not universal. Fear had begun to grow. Many alien fleets saw humans as unpredictable, reckless, and potentially dangerous. Elias knew this would happen sooner or later. Humans were often underestimated, and when others realized their true capability, the reaction could be extreme. It came sooner than expected. A fleet from the Cathari Dominion, a powerful and militaristic alien species, arrived near Typhon 9. Their ships were sleek, armed with devastating weapons, and highly organized. They had received reports of Elia's achievements and were curious, cautious, and perhaps a little concerned about what a single human could accomplish. Elias sensed them before their communication arrived. Subtle energy shifts in the station, minor fluctuations in docking bay systems. Humans had a way of noticing details others overlooked. He had already prepared. The ship was upgraded further during the previous nights. Stealth systems activated, shields optimized, weapons ready, and engines tuned for maximum performance. When the Cathari fleet sent a message demanding the human show his intentions, Elias responded simply, "I am the mechanic of this ship. I am not looking for trouble, but I will defend what I've built." The Cathari did not understand human diplomacy. Their reply was firm, "Present your ship or be destroyed." Elias smiled faintly. Humans did not fight because they were stronger, they fought because they were clever, and cleverness was his greatest weapon. As the Cathari fleet approached, Elias climbed into the ship's cockpit. Panels lit up as the vessel recognized his touch, systems aligning with his commands almost instinctively. The engines hummed, the shields pulsed, and the adaptive weapons systems calibrated themselves. The ship was no longer merely repaired, it was alive with potential. The first exchange was chaotic. Cathari ships fired volleys of plasma at impossible speeds, but Elia's ship moved unpredictably, weaving and sliding through space with uncanny precision. Shields absorbed attacks, then adapted, redirecting energy to areas under stress. The weapons systems responded instantly, targeting engines, weapon arrays, and control systems of the Cathari ships with surgical accuracy. The alien fleet could not predict the humans' moves. Their formations, perfect in training simulations, collapsed in the real encounter. Elias anticipated their tactics, adjusted his maneuvers in real time, and exploited weaknesses that no algorithm could calculate. For hours, the battle raged. Ships that once inspired fear in the galaxy found themselves disabled, confused, or forced to retreat. The human mechanic and his ship were a singular force, combining speed, adaptability, and unpredictability in ways no alien fleet had ever encountered. Yet, Elias did not seek to destroy unnecessarily. He aimed to demonstrate capability, not cruelty. Disabled ships were left intact, their crews unharmed. Humanity had a different way of showing strength, not through devastation, but through mastery and control. As the last of the Cathari ships retreated, communication channels buzzed with astonishment. "Impossible," one commander whispered. "How can one ship and one human defeat us?" Elias looked out at the stars, steady and calm. The vessel beneath him had surpassed expectations, but he knew it was the human mind guiding it that made the difference. Technology alone could not achieve this. It required creativity, intuition, and daring. The aftermath was swift. Across multiple sectors, fleets and commanders began to recognize the implications of what they had witnessed. Humans were not merely survivors. They were innovators, strategists, and unpredictable forces that could not be ignored. Back at Typhon 9, the docking station buzzed with activity. Traders, engineers, and curious onlookers came to see the vessel, the ship that had once been abandoned but now stood as a symbol of human ingenuity. They whispered stories of its adaptive shields, predictive weapons, and astonishing speed. Some even speculated that the ship could think for itself, responding instinctively to its pilot's thoughts. Elias did not claim credit. He focused on improvements, constantly testing new systems, refining old ones, and pushing the ship further. Stealth capabilities were expanded, engines optimized, and communication arrays upgraded. The vessel was no longer just a ship, it was a masterpiece, a living testament to human persistence and ingenuity. Small alien delegations began approaching him with proposals, alliances, trades, even research collaborations. Elias listened but remained cautious. Humans had learned the hard way that not everyone in the galaxy could be trusted. Yet he also knew that demonstrating humanity's capabilities openly could shift perceptions across civilizations. Meanwhile, stories of the human mechanic spread beyond Typhon 9. Spacefarers told tales of the abandoned ship that now outmaneuvered fleets, disabled enemies without harm, and adapted faster than any alien technology. Humans were clever, inventive, and unstoppable when they refused to accept limits. One evening, Elias stood on the observation deck, looking at the stars. The ship hummed beneath him, its systems alive and responsive. He reflected on the journey from the scrapyard corner to a fully operational masterpiece. He thought of the aliens who had doubted him, the pirates who had tried to attack, and the fleet that had challenged him. Each obstacle had been met not with brute force, but with cleverness, perseverance, and the human way of thinking differently. "This is just the beginning," he whispered. "The galaxy doesn't know what humans are capable of yet." The ship pulsed in response, almost like a heartbeat, ready for the journeys ahead. It was no longer just a vessel, it was a symbol. A symbol of human tenacity, creativity, and the ability to see potential where others saw only failure. In the days that followed, Elias continued his work, enhancing the ship further. New modifications were tested, stealth systems refined, weapons calibrated for precision rather than destruction. Life support and energy systems were made more efficient, allowing longer journeys without resupply. Every improvement showcased the unique combination of human adaptability and technological mastery. Across the galaxy, alien fleets began to alter their strategies. No longer could they rely solely on brute force or rigid protocols. The human mechanic and his ship had introduced unpredictability into galactic calculations. If a single human could achieve so much, what might an entire human fleet accomplish? And that question lingered in every mind. The galaxy had underestimated humans for too long. One mechanic, one abandoned ship, had proven that humans could think differently, act creatively, and achieve what others deemed impossible. Finally, Elias prepared for the first major demonstration of the ship's full capabilities. He charted a course through asteroid fields, nebulae, and gravitational anomalies, testing every system he had upgraded. The ship responded flawlessly, adaptive shields protecting against debris, engines adjusting thrust and direction in real time, and weapons ready for any potential threat. As he maneuvered through a dense asteroid belt, he reflected on the journey. The vessel had been abandoned, ignored, and forgotten, but humans never ignored challenges. They saw potential where others saw decay, innovation where others saw obsolescence, and strength where others saw weakness. Emerging from the asteroid belt, the ship's performance had surpassed anything the galaxy had witnessed. Aliens who monitored the tests sent reports filled with disbelief. The abandoned ship was no longer just repaired, it was extraordinary. Elias allowed himself a small smile. The galaxy was watching, and humanity had made its statement. One human had taken a forgotten vessel and turned it into the greatest ship they had ever seen. Not through superior numbers, not through overwhelming force, but through creativity, perseverance, and the unique human ability to see potential where others did not. The story of the abandoned ship, once ignored by all, had become legend. And the human who had revived it had proven a universal truth. In a galaxy full of advanced civilizations, human ingenuity, courage, and determination could not be ignored. Elias Trent leaned back in his chair, eyes on the stars. The ship hummed around him, alive with energy and potential. Together, they were ready to face whatever the galaxy had to offer. The abandoned ship had become the greatest, and humans, clever, persistent, and fearless, had shown the galaxy what it meant to never give up.